Tonam la janjo bandon danen jangoje Dhargye chujurun gibyan sonam je rola benje sanje ro barajo Chedan soje jonam Dhargye chujurun gibyan sonam je rola benje sanje ro barajo Soje jonam la janjo bandon danen jango Dhargye chujurun gibyan sonam je rola benje sanje ro I just want to remind every one of ourselves here to take a moment and cultivate bodhicitta motivation or the altruistic motivation seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of at least contrived bodhicitta or altruistic motivation, that we should all participate in this discourse on mind tuning like the rays of the sun. I'll read a couple of pages from this text from page 89 to give you the blessing of Lung, lineage oral transmission, followed by explanation.
Deda chimara, deda chimapa do tamje deva kondu sone ne jeve jedu do she. Mela yang rangi ti 将把的吧，你要当你要老年纪吧，成军山没有的，现在我这边到吧，他们讲。特别的是控制间的这一些我能成就首先成都之下那接着可以就他这公众党你们不接了我来的你们接啥你们这边你们讲我当时做一遍你们接哪里当时做一遍去做这个做路我给一种机会去做把这些钱得着了成就下行。这是这些兄弟，他那么别话对，就是在大概在了现在也好多说那遇着，那么这你们吧，你们这么些么多说，当你谁这谁觉得大概我这来啊。那么过去你们为啥了？对吧？没叫我先说吧，但是当时把我的我先去把这边老可吧先吧，俺那别多的，但是我这把我的个别就这他们就这他们这，小不上先说吧，但是这年把我一动我们这也没有给就这样做。罗大那个上那些吧，当这个熊不是下的，就是可以去过那是你我没这些的，这样那个这的，怕那边嘛熊嘛你就这就把当新这就我样你新年的轮到把你写为的来的，好多那个把我们这写说到把写为是看着这把当就去欧语过去吧，那么了。其他的我把这其他的我把这都把你过那了到底讲先生的过了哪里？当我呢这个工作说了，看了都学的也不那么多，还没说。这些呢，那了没了吧？全部没写完，那些吧这个。写完这个写的这工作说把这个小屋你把这个工作让到现让到现在的，对，那么过了你们这边搞不也其他的叫我叫什么家族工厂了，针对说那。没了吧？全部的现在年也让小把它打了吧，现在的让把小屋。希望让这怕是这样希望没讲，除了那个这个我们的了，没有什么可能上过这位学当给没把人迎接了，等到些时候，大不年轻我把让了的这没讲个米通话怎么没对讲。一个人没有这个月被得到了，接着这个人呢，我把家的红州就为我写的用你写着，用写着的到一丢过了，你们忘了这个的见写了到多几见现大了，对面是写送的，这是推什么说行给我这休假。我听见走那我老嘛走那么我下大人了，觉得过了有的人他把那个路人进来，这当中那听见的些的，可不是那些那人给这行了呀，你们我到把早没就小学生，普的先别破多不就，说你们这就了嘛。从头把小姑说些东把呢，都把就了让这个接送的，上把小姐是工作，后把些问题的没这些，如果就把30年纪，那么没吧，工作没对吧？没说那把小。他群众的第一个，好像老总他们这些的，老总他们这些呢， Labjata Tamsi Yin Shidizan Lujo Tondima Toda Dunan Juma Yindriva Tamsi Siade da Tere Kaji Telendena Niva Yunga Tamsi Shi. That Tim Mioji by Tarding Sani Kaya, the Labja Dideshi was a Rosa, Chulun Loja, the Labja Sigara. But that he don't die Dumbati Labjatira. That the Shadon the we Tondu Konata when Tondu Shansim Jodi, didn't make it Mazoro, did that the good Shansim Jodu Gaga shares that the Tondu Shansim Jodu to call a law share the Shinsa.
No, sure. No. Geshe read from page 89 to page 92, almost to the end of the page. And so as Geshe reminds us that last week, we talked about the distinction between commitment, samaya, tamsik in Tibetan, and labcha, advice. Sometimes we translate as precepts. So what's the distinction between the two? Commitment involves pledges, and once we have pledged or committed ourselves to certain vows, and if we transgress them or we violate them, that would incur us what we call faults. Whereas advice, is more in the sense of how we can prevent ourselves from making mistake or doing the wrong thing. And if we don't follow the advice, it is not as if we will incur faults, just like breaking our commitments. So that's the distinction between samaya, commitment, and labcha, or advices. In the 7-point mind training fundamental Lojong text, mind training text, the 7th point deals with advices or labcha, maybe some translated as precepts. And also in the 7-point mind training text, in terms of order of presentation, ultimate bodhicitta or ultimate mind of enlightenment is presented first, followed by conventional bodhicitta or conventional mind of enlightenment. But in terms of explanation, oftentimes our lineage masters would reverse the order, and so they would first explain conventional bodhicitta or mind of enlightenment is development, and that leads us to understanding and developing ultimate bodhicitta or ultimate mind of enlightenment.
당벌 우자 로중아 이베서 저주서 로중아 인자 근데 해다 작아지고 가져 시셨는데 그래서 거다 뒷바스가 어디서 어디 키도 세와 로존데 해제 아무고 세니 에다 데레 가서 특별지에서는 다 가서 데스거로 어찌다 파지티브데 나티베 계자메시 티제티메 계자메시 강가녀서 투모와다 애는 인중다 그래서 가지 미게 주서 같이 봐라 어쩌절이야 엔젤은 거치바남 때미샤와시 어디래 다들이 뭐 봐서 그 먹고 싶은 사람와 저주샘도 검지시대 도와주시면 제가도 송고 말이지 대대시는 지도로야 될 어디서 왔다 아니 로브종 가서 초콜릿 와서 그냥 같이 디스 거가 kelani varsa o timbre o tigres tak tini karsa gyame wana ne mishaas karika ne se son de ba menje sanje gi se temba chishil nyamzo lemba la bar shawos la karika se no dadi doa karika se namji ganzo sungdu do ga ote 가진 너하는 거주네 이 상황되어서 상황 다 티파 다디는 먼저 쉬어요 말아. 저기 가가 상지 내가 주질 뒤에 가가 가사적인 냠슬린 셴부터. 가지. 근데 도알도 되고 내가 알고 말해서 내가 알고 도알 거면서 어떻게 지금 뉴제는 겨왔다야 많이 봐세 가사적인 뒤에 가가 냠슬린 또 주질한 뒤에도 샤고 그랬어. 다들 개체교를 샤워해.
We are back to page 89 and the big caption reads explanation of what appears in the text in verse. The 7-point root or the fundamental Lojong mind training text states, I quote, always train in the 3 general points, in Tibetan. And so what are the 3 general points that Lojong practitioners or mind training practitioners must follow or be aware of? The number 1 is we must not transgress our pledges or commitments. So what does that mean is that as we let's say claim ourselves to be a practitioner of Lojong, mind training or thought transformation, which really centrally involves generating bodhicitta or the awakened mind. That is our heart practice. But we must not make it as if an excuse to transgress what we might regard as minor commitments or pledges or any other aspects of Buddha's teaching or the doctrine. In other words, somebody, let's say hypothetically speaking here, of course, says that, well, I'm a great Lojong practitioner. So the heart of all Buddha's teachings is developing bodhicitta. Those other little things, little vows, minor vows, doesn't matter. I can break them, So that's not a big deal kind of thing. So then let's say we end up breaking other commitments which has to do with individual emancipation ethics or patimoksha vows so other such commitments that we have made. And as Geshe explained that regardless of whether we are practicing Sutrayana or the Sutra path or the Tantra path, there are things that we must all subscribe to and cultivate, such as developing renunciation or ngenjung, aversion to misery in samsara, and not to indulge in any of the 10 negativities of body, speech, and mind, and so those must be followed, if you will. So we cannot make an excuse as if, well, now I'm an advanced Lojong practitioner, so therefore it's okay for me to indulge in any of the 10 negativities of body, spirit, and mind. But renunciation is kind of down there, not my level kind of thing. Not have that kind of attitude and belittle and look down on any of such aspects of Buddha's teaching, because that would involve what we call transgressing commitments, or kyalang gyalwa, breaking our pledges, literally translating here. And some of the examples given in the textbook is like, how we have to respect the nature. We have to respect all sentient beings, So one must not proclaim like, well, I'm a great Lojong practitioner, bodhicitta is all one and everything kind of thing. So it's okay for me to cut down some trees or the plants, It's okay for me to disturb bodies or waters. Well, maybe you might get lucky that you don't get harmed by doing such things, but the fact is that that could disturb the lives of sentient beings and the people in the locality. So therefore, one must not so one must not indulge in such things. Actually, that's related to the second point, which is, as we said, Tochol means once we become a Lojong practitioner, we must not make it an excuse as if we can go wild and crazy. Kind of misbehave. We say like, well, it's okay. Yeah, for other people, they shouldn't cut the trees, they shouldn't disturb water. But you know what? I'm an advanced practitioner. It's okay. It's not going to harm me. And then you do it. Maybe you get lucky and you don't get harmed. But the fact is that it's going to disturb the environment. It's going to disturb other sentient beings' life and other people. So that's not a good thing. The third general point is. We must not be biased in our practice, chogrewa, partial. Partial in the sense that, maybe we seem to be a very good practitioner of Lojong mind training in relation to the people who are dear and near ones. Those people we love, seems like we are a great practitioner. But then when it comes to strangers who are neither friends nor enemies, and especially who comes to people who are troublemakers and we really see them as our enemies, then we couldn't do our practice, Lojong. So that would be called biased Lojong practice, partial one. Because our practice must be extended equally towards one and all. We must not discriminate among the sentient beings as being friends, strangers, and enemies. We should be able to relate to all of them by equal measures. And if we could do that, because this is really important, right? Bodhicitta, awakened mind, means we will think about the well-being of all sentient beings equally. We will care equally for them. So there's no such thing as I can practice bodhicitta, on selective basis. I'm okay with bodhicitta with my friends and dear ones, you're cool kind of thing. But, when it comes to strangers and enemy, like, no, no more bodhicitta here. You can't do that, So those are the three, general points that are mentioned. And as you find it stated on page 89, and I quote, on the contrary, we should train in practicing the Buddha's teaching in its entirety from the instruction of the basic logic up to the Guhya Samaja Tantra. So as unquote, as Geshe explained, that in a traditional setting we said, starting from the Vinaya text called Dvakarika, which is foundation practice, all the way up to the Guhya Samaja, which is one of the highest yogatantric practice, we must practice everything inclusive and integrated and within this whole range. There's no such thing as pick and choose and then discard and belittle any aspect of Buddha's teaching. Tibetans have a very nice way of saying, which I don't know whether I can do justice to translate it, to Tushi Lamda Keshava, which basically means a metaphor that if you want to pick off a piece of cloth, you can pick it up from any of the four corners. When you pick it up, the whole cloth comes up, isn't it? No, the whole cloth will be picked up, whether it is from this corner or that corner. So like that, whatever practice we do, it has to be a holistic, integrated practice that it includes all other practices. It is as if not that we pick up certain aspect of the practice and we drop the ball on the other aspects of the teaching.
유령 못 내리세도 막 어디 깨져대 가지다
so
다 주어제 패사는 되게 저 갈래 좀 만jam네 에네 대서 뭐 jam신로 어디 뭐 시 어디에 겨와시니 시야죠 어딜 따다디 가르사 되게 뭐 주실라디 책고시야 그가 냥도 냥슬래야 되다 에네 가르사 제르부제 투모 뭐에 베다 무소도 중이시 거다 거지 어디 시세 제다지 벌로주 로중에서 맹다 유제의 시에서 산예고 신예조 군의 이거 사람 재미도 당신 시와 제 채워서 다주도 봐 군도 방신 방신서 주 라지 탐지 제보 종급 제보 야세제시 바르까지 남버다 주슬라바샤오스 어디다 로조 명다데 로조 인도도시 대시대에 산예고와서 지대의 용자를 사들이 디발지 데들 내디어 라내디어 디발지 독자시조 머세야 제요 머여로와 근데 신예지와서 신도들을 라내디어 디야 더조다 상도시야 디요 신예세야 디다디디 충고들이야 육지면 충고되게 동되게 되더야 지대 용자를 치부도 칼이야 이 샤진도 치야 되게 기분 좋게 뒤용 샤선시야 되게 지금 말이야 늘 보고도 그래야 저 니게서 어디가 자는 만점이시 에는 고네가 제비도 좋아서도 다 내용 고네도 셔보이 롱바데 가자카데는 에는 제메도 좋아서 다 코라베 아우지야이나 미셔다 때는 코디레 강주모도 되다 아이도 콜이야 도와서야 좀 시에 강지 멜 내가 연구하러 와 제가 뒤로 도저 말이지 그래서 그 또발라드냐는 군주면도 되고서야 되시고래서 뒤자리 당년 시원 제 저서 도저도 좀 방신세 당년서다 다데 라메카데 겨와도다 거기 다도 짜내면서 강주 뭐지 신경고 뒤에 이제 저서 도저 좀 군도 방시 어디저도 조금 맞지 거다. 나서. 이양 거기서 쉬면 트레이드에서 드시고 이제 말아. 이빨이야 냉고 조고도 드시죠 말이지. 주어지 못하지 내서다 주어제는 탐지 저거시 봐지. 얍세지 par 가지 나버다비 줄라바 샤오세. 다 거제 다 건저기도 가지 가든베 맹아 좀 랑렌 나버다버다 제르부지도 호텔 요새 오러와. 시도디 법나가 마음에 나시시 다디 시티즌 칠 문제시 부잔지요 말이 제가 디 문제시 우시죠 말이시. 디메다. 넘버타 바시고 말이시. 그래서 디스원 다데 자 좀게도 송도와. 그 소소데 똑발라디 구주메디 디고 저세네 도알레시데 다좀 데메 동지 린조와. 같이 다저버 터디나 근데 그 회사들 그거에 콜이야 편도 예버 좀 대바자도 디레나 아는 가 다저버 터서는 디고 얼마 디데 가자가 가면 가 다저버 터서 또가 디레께서 한제서 리제서 디레 해셔 버어 어디 이제 디레지 차고다 어시도 디레시 이니 카사 조셔부 타지기 제정가 보죠 어디 랍자도 넣어야 돼 어디 군제셔 미지바 티리
So we are on page 89 still. So of the three general points, the first one is never act in contradiction to the practices common to all Buddha's vehicles or teachings. So as Geshe explained it already, now with a kind of historical example to illustrate this point. In Tibet, in ancient time now, and before great Indian master Adisha was invited there, my footnote, 11th century, Tibet had, a lot of these people, who claim to be tantric practitioners, and they kind of feel like they're highly advanced in this esoteric practice, and they would kind of belittle and look down on the Sutrayana practices. And then those who are very, Puritans kind of following sutras. So then they started to kind of criticize those tantric practitioners because they are doing bizarre, weird things, So there was kind of a whole Sikhism between the followers of pure sutra traditions and esoteric tantric practice. Now they both feel as if tantra and sutra, they can't go together. They contradict each other, and then they started to belittle and criticize each other negatively. So that was not healthy at all. So Great Adisha was invited, and Great Adisha basically resolved this big Sikhism, and where he explained how on the foundation of the sutra practices, the tantric practices built. So there is intimate connection between the sutra and tantra, and as a matter of fact, all the teachings of sutra and tantra are meant for an individual practitioner to integrate the whole thing into his or her life. So this is how the problem was settled, and so then the teaching was gotten rid of all that misconceptions. So that's what it is, that Adisha contributed tremendously to the Dharma in Tibet, where now people have come to understand the interconnection and the essentiality of Tantra and Sutra practice as a holistic, integrated practice. So that's important for us to keep, so that as Lojong practitioner or mind training practitioners, we must not engage in such a contradictory statements and practices. We should be able to holistically engage in the practice of Buddha Dharma. Now the second general point here on page 89, it says, I quote, "We should avoid digging harmful earth, felling sinister trees, stirring noxious waters, visiting those afflicted by contagious diseases without precaution, or associating by view or behavior with those who are morally corrupt or possessed by spirits." There's a lot of things going on here. So as Geshe explained every aspect of this, which I will try to translate now. As Lojong practitioners, again, we must not in general engage in kind of wild and crazy behaviors, as I said, in any appropriate behaviors. Examples are: avoid digging harmful earth. There are some beliefs that certain areas are very sensitive. Maybe there are invisible inhabitants there. And if you kind of dig those parts of the soil, that's going to be very harmful to the environment and to the beings around that. And so people believe that. But then somebody says, I'm exception to the rule. I'm a Lojong practitioner. And what is bad for you is not going to harm me. Let me show you, kind of thing. So you go and dig the earth on purpose just to demonstrate your kind of a contention, and that's very harmful. Maybe you might get lucky once that you don't get harmed, but it's going to disturb the environment and the people in the locality. So one must not do that, avoid that. Felling sinister trees. I know it's always difficult to translate such things into English. I don't know how much sense it gives with sinister trees. But again, the Tibetan word says that there are certain trees we believe are more like the residents of, let's say, some local spirits or the deities. And if you particularly fell down those trees, so those are very sensitive kind of trees, and again, that's going to harm the local spirits and the deities or nagas residing on those trees, and then that could be harmful to the whole community and locality. So one must not, again, kind of claim I'm a Lojong practitioner, mind training, so it's not going to harm me, and let me show you kind of that thing. So must not do that. Avoid such a crazy behavior. The text doesn't say crazy, but I say it. Crazy behavior, your translator here. Stirring noxious waters. So again, we believe that not all water bodies are one and equal. There are some water bodies which are more like the residences of the nagas. And if you disturb and you pollute them, you can go and pee into those water pools, it's going to react, and then you might get sick and all kinds of things, and people all believe that. But then again, somebody says, I'm a Lojong practitioner, I can pee into the water, I can disturb the water, it won't harm me, kind of thing. So that is again not the proper thing to do. So avoid that. visiting those afflicted by contagious disease without precaution. Everybody says that, there is this epidemic and everybody has to be very careful. I think maybe Geshe didn't use it. COVID is a great example, right? So one must not claim I'm a Lojong practitioner and COVID-19 is not going to beat me. Let me show you. I can touch anybody. I can just go and I don't know, don't have a mouth cover. Those are not examples given in the text, but I'm using it here. So you might get lucky, once, but not always. But at the same time, that's going to hurt many other people, because people started to feel very anxious about your behaviors, and now they wonder whether you are the COVID-19 carrier here, trying to do weird things. And so such things should be avoided. And of course, the example given here is more in general, where contagious disease is there, everybody is being very precautious and very careful, but then somebody claims, I'm a Lojong practitioner, so what the heck, I'll do it, kind of thing. So don't do that, avoid it. And then the next one is associating by view or behavior with those who are morally corrupt or possessed by spirits. What this means is, people who have the habit of more kind of breaking their pledges and commitments, made in with the gurus, and they really don't give hardly any commitments. So what we are saying is that we don't mean don't talk to these people or how should I say, look down upon them. But what is being stated is we must not, be in their companionship, so that we don't get influenced by their their behaviors. We don't get negative influence from them. So it's better to avoid such people who are in the habit of transgressing and breaking all kinds of samayas or commitments. So then, as it's stated in the text, we should follow the pure and unbroken tradition descending from the great Atisha, the sole divine Lord, to the all-knowing Tsongkhapa and his disciples. As Geshe explained, that of course all the four traditions of Tibetan Buddhism have been influenced by the great original Kadamba tradition, originated from great Atisha. But among the four traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, perhaps Lama Tsongkhapa's tradition, which is often recognized as the new Kadamba tradition, is mostly influenced by the purity of the original Kadamba tradition. And as the great Upasaka Domtamba, the main disciple of Atisha, a layperson, Upasaka, looks very simple man, but a great realized being, he said that even if your realizations could match the divine deities, but externally you should behave decently like any other normal person. Don't make an exception. I'm highly realized and therefore I can behave in some strange ways. Your realizations are going to be great. You're equal to the divine beings, but externally, in terms of your behavior and conduct and discipline, you should behave like normal, decent human being. That's the Kadamba tradition. And that's why in the Gelugpa tradition, always emphasis is made on however highly developed you are from inside, but you should always remain, very humble, as if you don't have realization. You're like any other regular person. The metaphor often used is it's just like a butter lamp or candlelight that is really shining inside the pot, but outside there is nothing. It looks like any other pot. So you have to conceal your practice and realizations. Now, even it is said in the Vinaya text, relevant text, that for an arahat or arahant in Pali, someone who has achieved nirvana or nibbana, but if there is no real purpose or reason, even an arahat must not tell somebody that, you know what, I'm an arahat, because that could incur some fault even to the arahat. But if you really think there's a great purpose, reason why, as an arahat, you must disclose this to the other person because it's of a great benefit to this other person or these people, then it's okay. You're not lying. You're an arahat, isn't it? But if there's no such reason, don't go and do the propaganda that, hey, I'm arahat, look at me. That's a problem, even for the arahat. Which means for us, it is more problematic. You know.
Well, that's about what you didn't mind about the Daniel Parma. Made me mind about Daniel Parma sang ending some. Told me about some so good, show them a lot good. Nange Tiger Jay seems that Casa La Chaming Jay, Chitamo Gongo, Cheros. And the Panja Ronji, Numo, on the Shinayang, Chora the Nizewe, Nimbota Mijogi, Nuba Chitame, G, Nimbundu, Suishene, Lagode, Nimuta, the Goya Tava Telchambala, lovely dipping, Coed Dungen, La Joa, Tumbi Sheros. Tedara Guna, Riso, Shevameva, one digueso, she tomani, Casa Tibetan Buddhism. That's the logic. You tell Taka with me of Tanya Tangaja, Kaja, Rama seems to have the logic of you shower, Takanji shower.
No.
Nagata the Navin seems to have any lot to diligence, Chanum Kevu, or Sheda Sozo Gasa as a dead Cham Nisha Shiajo, or Tirejivo, Chore, the nigger Pentoya Morris. That Padme Pugul Seado, and so the Yidis part to do so. The dead English Ganga, Jamugo Ganga Yorova, or Tipento Morris. No, can you person consider Senior Tabile? Yambani or Imchishabo Goris? No. Or the Goys, the Lodge on side the Taiva, the Koda Ganga Yuaton was what the Goris. In the Panja, you moved like any hit of the Yundus at the Panja, and this Munjua Seado, and tell a Tara motion, remember motion the bone or was this bone way in the dead that she was paid to our Maris. She had the touch him what Lodge had to be sail over jungle, sail over Majana. In the same time, they do inject that showed me get the Suzu Ronji, you move to your Pantoya to do Shagomar was. No, she the con Jashabu, and Nageta, the next signature, the Lodge on Karza good, you move to the Tava, what the garrison, you move to the Ganga, Tava Tanisha Pachi, Dumeja, she does later, rocking so much, Tava Toya Gigsing. She does Sozo Yadu, he the dad of the day. Tia Ganga Pangova, she the Tia Ganga Pango, Bezo she go in the Childress, because a long debut. Coy Dunga soon be Sheros. Or did the Nimu Ganga any lam Sudu Lam to Toba Java dep any Garza did a one. You saw that Dunga Ganga couldn't do the Sawa to say that the Namji that you are doing me to the one this year, the 2 or that the consequence can Sawa Tirova. She's that doing say that the order tap the Yakoshi, what she don't do to racing as a basic. There says the shoulder of the children, the pental maris, touching machine face, Tibetan said.
We are on page 89 still, and the last paragraph, thirdly, meaning the third general point, which we explained a little bit earlier, that we must not be partial or biased in our practice of Dharma. Yeah? And so as Krishna explained it more here, that in terms of cultivating love and compassion and other benevolent attitudes, we must, relate to all sentient beings as being equal, and because all sentient beings constitute our objects for developing love, compassion, bodhicitta, and so forth. Yeah? And but we are biased in the sense that we are able to have love and compassion for the dear and near ones, but we couldn't have them in relation to the strangers and the enemies. Then our attitudes are biased and our practice is very biased. With that kind of biased practice, we don't get anywhere. As a matter of fact, we don't need to practice Dharma, to have that kind of limited love and compassion. Right? The parents have this natural love and compassion for their children, and the relational partners have natural love and compassion for each other. That doesn't require any mind training, but that's still very limited. With that kind of a limited love and compassion, we are not going to get anywhere. For us to be able to experience awakened mind or bodhicitta and to find enlightenment, we have to engage in a practice thoroughly and bring our practice to the completion. So which means as we cultivate love and compassion and bodhicitta, awakened mind, we try to include everybody. We really seriously mean our practice that it is equal to one and all, friends, enemies, and strangers. So we have to see that. And also from another point of view, in terms of getting rid of afflictive emotions or delusions, nyonmo, kleshya in Sanskrit, again, we have to get rid of all kinds of afflictive emotions. We cannot pick and choose some afflictive emotions and get rid of them, but then we don't work to get rid of other afflictive emotions. Because afflictive emotions are equally bad. But every kind of afflictive emotion or nyomo, it obstructs us from attaining nirvana enlightenment. Right? No particular afflictive emotion is kind of good, like, okay, I'll let you pass by to the nirvana. It didn't say that. Every afflictive emotion is equally bad in terms of obstructing us from attaining freedom from samsara, nirvana, and finding enlightenment. And also every afflictive emotion could precipitate our rebirth in the unfortunate states of rebirth in samsara. So every afflictive emotion is a source of suffering. So because they are all same, so when we say we are going to purify our mind of afflictive emotion, we mean that we are going to get rid of all afflictive emotions thoroughly. Yeah? And that's the way to go, not being selective here and there. And so because as Geshe said, that in general, as we often hear our guru say, that all sentient beings are same or equal in that we desire or wish for happiness, and we don't wish for or desire suffering. Yeah? Now the question is, how can we accomplish the happiness that we're seeking, and how can we end the suffering that we don't want and we don't like? Of course, we have to engage in the right kind of actions or the methods. So as we engage in those methods, we should do it thoroughly. Again, not biased and partial method, because partial practice becomes partial outcome. We want the full outcome or the results. So therefore, it is important that we engage in our practice impartially or holistically and completely. No.
And colleague go there she was in Yamaji Koran Sungju Nasale, Shudiga Dinga Jaculesa. She had a dead year, long circle, the people Malang so called tomorrow.
No,
let's end up with you short.
No. So we are on page 90, and of course, all sentient beings are equally objects of love, compassion, and awakened mind, and therefore we must, treat them equally, and we should not be biased in our bodhicitta cultivation practice here. But if we harm them, that could be very detrimental, and whether it is harming human beings because they like to take revenge, or non-human beings, they also like to take revenge as well. Especially the story Geshe just shared is about the nagas, right? Nagas in English, the only word we have serpents, how much that captures it. But nagas, if you really disrespect them and you kind of harm them, they can be very vicious. They can wait for a long time until you're on a bad hair day, then they can attack you. On a good hair day, they couldn't, because your merit is good and your fortunes are on high rise. But on your bad hair day, they are there. They can stick on you and they can harm you. So as Geshe said, of this example, it is said that once there was a Geshe who was very pure in observing his monastic ethics of the vows, and somehow he happened to in the past harm a Naga. So the Naga was waiting for his chance to get back. And because most of the time this Geshe was such a pure Puritan in terms of observing vows, the Naga did not find opportunity to, I get you kind of opportunity. But then one day it is said that when he went to give teaching, like usually how the monks have the special we called the square-shaped seat cover called dinga, as Geshe was sitting on, right? So he forgot that, bring that to put on his throne, and he's just sat on it. And this is like violating a minor monastic rule here. And so the Naga was waiting, like, I got you this time. So the Naga harmed the Geshe, and he said that instantaneously, one of his, in certain part of his body, there appeared a wound, what called abscess, the Naga produced that. So this is how, nobody likes being harmed. And most of the time, whether humans or non-human beings, they want to take revenge if they can,
But did you number tower songs and corresponds that no shit was a marva that the Dingamadi than Yishi Shomra?
No.
Shedag namely and Dingamadi Lungju show marva.
No, sir.
That don't come it is Sunju, this is a deal you said the no, says I did it. That Melia Raji young mother said is Alamena, so the bear no looks you can teach as soon as so shall sort of be young Shavina. And call back about a call was a sort of bad chingoschi on to shed dinner. Control Contosagro, that all teach you of the jail.
No.
So the game at the control us to do what was.
No.
But today she go more said that the Melia Carsa and the nearly do the son she go more issue. Nearly she will get it.
No. So that story of a pure Geshe monk, mostly he was so adamant in observing his vows, but then one day, he forgot to bring his, seat cover called dinga, and because usually monks are not allowed to just kind of sit on anybody's seat or bed without using that cover. So that was like a minor transgression of some Vinaya rule, and that was, good enough for the Naga to attack him. And another one Geshe explained is that when we have been nice and kind to others, we must not how should I say, remind them all the time as if how nice I have been to you, as if I have done so much favor, and so that's not a music to the ears. When you keep on repeating 1,000 times, it just started to annoy. It's like a stalking, almost. Geshe didn't use the word stalking. So he's like, I've been nice to you, I've been nice to you. Don't you remember what I did to you? What I remember to you? I've been kind to you, all that kind of stuff. So someday somebody will get pissed off, right? Why you are reciting your mantra here too much, And when anybody gets upset or angry, under the influence of anger, we can do all kinds of things, and you could get harmed. So therefore, when we help others, we just rejoice in that, but don't send them like 1,000 reminders that I have been nice to you,
我那成就康了下去，成就下的，但看得家长，那些不是这个多，就是可以就他们在那边，可是你们见是来的，你们见是来的，你们在东岸他们都跟个交的，现在他看得家的说家伙是你们家伙的是吧？的，可是你们一拿那家，人家做一遍去，都各种有龙啊，是做不成的。得了成就下些是的，现在他当地的呀，看对家啥的他，就是小的时候在说，那说白他了是，那可是成就下些是看对家的，他看对家拉萨这么工作，可这个是看对是不中，现在偏多嘛，这个是这，他了那别的是可是图书馆路那个，意思就做不成的，得了成就下些，说白他别。了别把下的小住的，大概得了现下去，工资上呢，一点点，那么的牛吧，牛就是没多少，大呢谁就等，到国家也来，那么个的牛们别到了没就先说吧，但是当时不啊当。那现在吧这边老可不写不了别多少，这个他看就是说啊，现在看见，他说了怕那看见你们这些被安说占这个面积，你们看得见的，我知道被落下就这一看来，你是不是谁给他这些我不知道，真的一去说他不是，你们看得见的现在。Yes.
So we are still on page 90, and from the 7-point mind training root of fundamental text, we have a statement which reads, engage vigorously in forceful cultivation and abandonment. The whole explanation Geshe I was giving earlier all pertains to that one line of the statement. And so if we really want to use a very forceful method, as if we couldn't stay, but we want to challenge, something. Well, then we should really challenge our afflictive emotions. That's worth it. Don't put up a challenge for human beings or fellow human beings, because if you really want to, challenge, we love challenges, then we want to challenge anything or anything, then it is worth for us to challenge our afflictive emotions, because we know that afflictive emotions, and contaminated karmic actions that we accumulate, these are the real sources of our all unwanted pain and suffering, isn't it? So these are, afflictive emotions are real enemies. So if we really want to show our courage and we want to be hero, so to speak, then it's very worthwhile for us to be able to battle and challenge our afflictive emotions. And within the afflictive emotions, we should go right to the root, which is grasping at self, Thubten, self-grasping, isn't it? It's from this all other afflictive emotions arise, and then the whole drama starts there, as we know. And so we have to challenge the self-grasping, and we want to, fight with it. Of course, there's no way to have a physical fight with the self-grasping. So the best method or the technique we could use to challenge and fight with subdue self-grasping is through listening to teaching, contemplating the meaning of the teaching, and meditating on the realized meaning, isn't it? So through study, contemplation, meditation, or listening, contemplation, meditation, that we should be able to tackle or challenge afflictive emotions, especially self-grasping. And as Geshe was kind of chuckling over this, just like, ordinarily speaking, people said, to show their heroism, right, or, courage, they said, okay, I'll go and fight my enemy in the war or the battlefield. And even if they die, it looks like, hey, I died just, fighting my enemy, isn't it? That's a heroism. So if we want to be a spiritual hero, so to speak, let's fight with afflictive emotion and self-grasping, So we should never let the self-grasping to subdue us or to take over us, but rather we do our best to challenge and subdue the self-grasping and other afflictive emotions. That's showing real spiritual heroism here. So on page 90, we have two stanzas quoted from great Bodhisattva, Mahasattva Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva's Way of Life to substantiate the point Geshe already explained. And those stanzas are on page 90, and those who have text, you can see them. So now on page 91, it says, subjugate all the reasons for selfishness. As Geshe explained, that we need to work with our attachment and anger or hostility. Because usually we are attached to the dear and near ones, and we may have hostility and anger towards those whom we don't like. And so to be able to manage and deal with attachment and anger, we should reflect on the changing patterns of the nature of relationships. As we can see that friends can become enemies, enemies can become friends, strangers can become friends or enemies, right? There's no such thing as somebody is forever and forever going to be our friend or an enemy or a stranger. There's no such thing. Even in these lifetimes, we know that in the early part of our life, somebody is our best friend, or we are somebody's best friend, and in the later part of life, we become strangers or we become enemies. We don't like each other anymore, or vice versa. Now, over many lifetimes, that's more true. Somebody who is our best friend in this life, could be our worst enemy in the next life, or had already been our worst enemy in some other lifetime, or could be a stranger totally in the next life. And who is a stranger right now, he or she is not going to be a stranger forever, because in the next life, he or she could be our best friend or our enemy. So all these relationships change. Everything is in flux, isn't it? Nothing is fixed. Nothing is fixed forever. So as we think about this changing nature of phenomena, transitory nature of phenomena, the changing relationships, that will help us to be able to have equal attitude towards all beings. Either they're all equally kind to us, isn't it? They have all been our best friends or dearest ones. They have been very kind to us. So if we can appreciate that all sentient beings at one point of time here or there, or many lifetimes, have been or could be our best friends and the dearest one and very kind to us, then we know we cannot discriminate among them, isn't it? All have been equally kind, all have been equally beloved to us. So this is how we cultivate equal love and attitudes towards them.
chum go yewan cheta de go to man ko na ta di jong xie so de ko na to mon chi kun jo sum kelo de je wa yue lama phama so chi che ne nam la se ene milik pa chung shi na ya di ba xin di che we kon ru so mo yo chao wo ti ba da 다들 실제 탑재 가가 다니셔야 됐다. 그게 지구에 아셔서 뒤는 다 뒤는 네가 세규로도 가려서나 에네 대자 대이자 군조섬도 데려도 군조섬도 비게다 꼴그 받아서 군조 때문에 네가 사야죠. 어디 이지 메지 사버지 시고도 있어. 에도서 쉬어셔서 라마 켄로요. 어디서 야야 탄지마요 찍셔오래. in 파마를 비게 양들이 찍셔오래시 그래서 어두절 때문에 비 예바도 충중이나 고충중이 상 맞아요. 제 콜야 내가 심부세는 사사셔오래시 그래서 콜 그 군조 som다 in 파마다 때 로보트 사시 디바디 디바 충중이 상나를 그 예바 심부 사고로지 당시나 어떻게 제가 뒤서 먼저 간다 다 겨시 날아가는 파마다 군조다 lobo gewasha yarama oti teda da digbashi na tagara yuru kade digbachi mato gro siso da ota kozol ya sabzab chi siguri ti shira di ma tamya de sha ta simje ka ka ta sim sira aja cha pe nyomba shi aja cha ti na le ta do khelo de tuzal di kunjo de dwal tembe digbacha de masab si sasa siguri
so we are on page 91 and as Geshe also already explained, that we should reflect on the transitory or changing nature of phenomena, especially relationships. So in that way, we will be able to appreciate that all sentient beings have been equally dear and kind to us, and so therefore we should treat them equally. So to substantiate that point, we have from Arya Nagarjuna's Shurulik, or letter to a friend, that one stanza which reads, your father becomes your son, your mother your wife, and your enemies become friends. The opposite also takes place. Therefore, in cyclic existence, there is no certainty at all, unquote. So that means relationships change, and nothing is fixed, and we should take that into account. And then there is a line from the fundamental 7-point mind training fundamental root text, which reads, construct a fort where the danger is greatest. In other words, like to prevent great negativities, like if there's a danger, we are going to erect a fortress so that we get protected from the enemy attack. In the same way, where there is a potential for us to create negativities, then we have to erect the fortress, so to speak. And we have a line from the same text which reads, train consistently to deal with difficult situations. And then 5 kinds of difficult situations are presented. And the number one is, as Geshe explained, that in general, we are trying to equalize our attitude towards all sentient beings so that we have sense of equanimity, even-mindedness, tangyum towards all sentient beings. We treat them equally, right? But at the same time, there are, so to speak, hot spots, difficult situations where we have to pay more attention, And so the first one is includes a whole category of beings, the 3 jewels, our objects of refuge, our gurus, spiritual mentors, and our parents, and in the case of monastics, their abbots or the preceptors. We have to be very careful in terms of how we relate to them, And if we do something positive, it is tremendously beneficial when we do anything positive in relation to the 3 jewels, abbots, spiritual gurus, and the parents, and so forth. By the same account, if we happen to do anything negative, that also becomes equally detrimental. So therefore, this is one of the hot spots, difficult situations where we have to make special attention to how we are relating to our to this whole category, if you may, of beings.
소소 남은 편지 남은 때 따바리 냠도 돼야지로 어디 있어 왔다 종이야 되러 그 네가 현시야 가 말이 따바리 냠도 돼서 종이야 되러 다드네 손바들 디레도 자주고 레도 데도 나와라세 밀리바 충시나 니니 이런 쇼왔다 지다 종오사 자주세데 미자오시 손바세는 잡아서지 말베 소소 벤 덴다시네 지코기 지도 산소세 소 통수 메리버지요로
no
디데르 딕텔 시무세요로
no
아니 닝니 이런 쇼와 라 시다 정하셔서 소소 논두리 모두 코디데 시그머리선 녀보테니 엔시고레시
no so
디직시 다 시바라르 파지요 마지보다 내가 샤르지레디 매제 솔 나기스 오예세 텔메스가니 장고디세 제가 소소파 야고 비지리 콜이한테 레가지에 마지 시다 페도 셰부자시 엔디 니마지 배 치당럽지 로선 코파 남지 야고 쉬셔서 엔디 셈판다도 치워로
나래
제가 콜이 무슨 샤기워로
no
럽도 책임나 디레비디게 당고디디 샤 문지 야고 파 야고 시다 시야 디지발 치달로서 어티드세요 그래 다티드세데 가가 수데 게제네 디데기 어디시 왔다 소소 이거 다가 좀 약보시 딱 콘데 진짜 싫어 서머 맞으셔야 돼요 말에 이게 되네 어떻게 직장 그러시 다디 걸세 시바디제 동데세 셰던 멤버 인진레 탐지 네 치세와 다니 세와 다 용예 쇼서 종 예버리스 다디 어디 다다 소소 야고시는 몇 팀에 들이 야고시다시는 집에 시다 따라도 몇 망보여로 어디 계절에서 다 가봐서라 니시 매정 매 저도 숙장이 민도진 이걸 묘에 르예베 대달라 시다도 간에 고바차데스 콘도 조지 신도 용예 쇼로세 어디세다 다데 다데 가바데샤 커서데 런레시 디지 메저 소소리아 코네바시데 디데게데 요마르시스야 요마르디 먼저 메시나 베 통주다 통나 데버스 요마레 미카기 도지 가보샤야죠 그이도 통하자지 야지 먼저 이제 요마레 디렉트스 어디를 장고레시 어디가데 고아 가세도 저 sabsa 지도 심제 탐지시 디 나로야 디가보데도 sabsa 버리시
no sir. So we are on page 91 at the bottom, and the big caption reads 5 kinds of difficult situation, and the first one we have already explained, which is in general we want to see how we treat all sentient beings as being equal. But in some particular case situations where we need to have more mindfulness, and the number one is that how do we relate to the 3 jewels, abbots, gurus, and our parents? Because there's a potential for us to create negativities which could be very detrimental. At the same time, we know if we create anything positive in relation to them, that's going to be extremely beneficial as well. Yeah. The second point is, we have to pay special attention to, our afflicted emotions with regard to our family members, okay? Because we are always living with them every day. So there's a potentiality for all sides, to, give rise to afflictive emotions, and then under their influence behave, improperly towards each other, or negatively, rather, I should say. And so this is another potentiality where the difficult situation is that we have to pay special attention to how we are relating to our family members. The third point is that whether it is monastic or just any other lay person, if we just happen to think that he or she is competing with us, like our rivals, so to speak, and if anything goes wrong with them, we might indulge in rejoicing, like, good for you, so that's really a negative mindset. So we should not do that. But as a matter of fact, even if if we find somebody's competing, we might even tell ourselves that maybe that person is not doing anything. It's just the way I am seeing that person, as if he or she is competing against me. So we should always try to train our mind and correct our perception and mindset. That's number 3. And then the number 4 is a really, again, very, very important one, which is people who we have been very nice and kind to them, helpful, but they accuse us of all the wrongdoings, isn't it? This is a really tough one, and as Gisela explained, that oftentimes people said, "Oh my gosh, can you believe? What he or she said or did to me? I have done this and that and this and that and that and that and that, but it's so ungrateful, and he or she did and said this and that. It's just like we completely go berserk with that. When the people we have been nice to, they turn out to be so ungrateful from our perspective, then we go bananas about it. We are so disappointed, and we just couldn't handle it anymore. How on the earth, but this is a tough situation. We have to have a special attention we need to pay. As Geshe said, that even in the 8 verses mind training, Lojong text by the Geshe Langri Thangpa, the number 1, he said, is when those who you have been very kind, they turn out to be ungrateful, you really have to kind of pay attention to your mind training. This is a tough one situation, so that we don't indulge in revenge and negativities. Number 5, is that sometimes we come across people they don't have to do or say anything to us. It's just their sight. I don't know, something is about it, we don't like it. And this is a tough situation, right? The person hasn't said anything, doesn't need to do anything. It's just in the presence of this person, or this person's presence in my vision is irritating and annoying for some reason. It's kind of irritates. So this is where we have to be very careful, because afflicted emotions can arise, and then we could find doing negative things. So these are the 5 difficult situations we have to pay special attention to. In general, we develop a sense of equanimity towards all beings. We try to see them as being equally kind to us, and we treat them equally kind. No discrimination among them. But in particular situations difficult like this, we have to master a special mindfulness and attention. So we will stop there today, and we will continue next week. And any questions on the social media? So there are a couple of questions here. I will go through each of them. Number 1, it seems that all the commitments actually involve natural negativities, unlike most of the precepts. Is that what distinguishes between commitments and precepts? Tiwa tambo de dirisha again, tagi kengi, ta tamzi ta labja paru kyabasung roage. Tamzi se de kelang di rebenet never tigres. Tamzi de kelang di gabe na never tigres on roa. And labja again de ko ngasan kago yermado, ko labja de majin never tigre yomasung roage. Says the Korangi di kyaba di tanda tamzi ge se de kangalo ko rangchingi ko mige bacha de shas roage. Di chane roage. Di chane ko dir kasore. Tanda nyabatia di chadu go resu duke. Tamzi ge se jo roage.
This that this ore. Kora de pena da he jamji go simkia khela de she chawjum dongbasu tu ganga khela sarwa. No. She the khela again chide til ya tene tamzi sigo tamzi nyamba sigwa. No so. Da lapta se de 이 탐지 문제부터 달래 nga 세지도 비게 타 링선의 가야 좀 납자지로 때도 납자시고 되신다.
so can dichi senani chi payment so gonza kanske namjung ade dero wa gen kar so re ranshi ki khana ma do de chebe khana ma do sa jerwa dichi kha tesna be tansana ko damji de gen da chebe khana ma do cha ro ge
roji khana ma do chebe khana ma do de khay mari di tanda ta der kharsa tamjing sa di pheji da chebe khana ma do
dero wa ge la ro wa ge
kilani ge ro ro
la de
다 납자도 되지 가 제바다로 이 칸난 거서 가요.
ke marwala
지다처럼 있는 누가 이게 누가 좀 되게 시기나. 근데 담지 뒤에 송토를 해서 타영사 납자자셔라. 어디 그 양한테 저라. 어디
taina damji de gen kisi damji ko khele me na gen ge ya gi nyaba ki she yo marwa ta ko
담지 개개라 하면 담지 개야
ke marwala so the question number 1 is, again I'll repeat it and then I'll translate the response Geshe has given. It seems that all the commitments actually involve natural negativities, unlike most of the precepts. Is that what distinguishes between commitments and precepts? As Geshe explained that commitment is by choice. Nobody can enforce you or make you make commitment that you don't want to. Once when you made the commitment, and if you transgress them, then it's going to incur faults. The example again Geshe given is somebody says, okay, I want to engage in the Lojong mind training practice, and so therefore I want to commit myself to equalize self with others and exchange self for others. Once you have made that pledge of commitment, and if you don't keep it, break it, so then that is breaking commitment, and that will involve faults. But somebody who hasn't made that commitment, right? That person does not incur any faults, right? Because it's your choice making. You made the commitment and you broke the commitment. The precepts and advices is the Tibetan word is labcha. I prefer the word advice here. Advice is given, right? And if you don't follow the advice, it's not going to incur any fault. Advice is more like, hey, to be able to keep your commitments well, you may want to do this. You should do this. That will be helpful to you, right? That's kind of advices. But in also Buddhism, we talk about how there are certain actions, by the very nature of the actions, these are negative, and it's nothing to do with commitments. If we indulge in those actions, my footnote, killing, it is a negativity by the nature of the action. Whether you have made commitment or not, this doesn't matter, isn't it? But the commitments are more part of what we call in Tibetan we called the category of negativities, which could only happen if you break your pledges or commitments. Otherwise, they don't. And so that's the distinction between commitment and advice. Number 2, according to mind training, is there any problem with gardening, preparing soil, planting flowers, fruits, and vegetables? That can did development or some with the Tuani Bachur Wage. Then I'm a Lojong in Yamlin, Dukan Lab, that on the Sishing Tabajur Wage. Lojong in Yamlin, Shishachenas, Method Taba, the Sishing Taba, the Shindo Taba, the Dige Sakwa or Wage. Sidukala Dadi, any castle, the Yokra Yamaris or Gentadi. Taking the Dasanya, what it is the government again, Wage.
That's that the picture that she can be dot out of him to what did you don't lose the some never see you tomorrow.
No, could you lam the Kichiguma? Tojo came out of us. Tojo came out of because the method of watching and I should be talking you know the method of what to get Goma or what a method of
she's not going to lumbe, usually 2 days and I don't shower.
Geshe says that according to Lojong or the mind training practice, the regular things that we do, gardening or planting flowers, vegetables, whatever, I don't think that would go against the mind training practice. What we were talking earlier about is like people who claim to be a mind training practitioner as if they have some kind of realization, right? And then they engage in misbehaviors like, okay, I know everybody says that tree is very sensitive, but I don't care. I don't think it's going to harm me. Let me cut it, right? That is the problem. right? But regular gardening and planting and cultivating fruits, that Geshe goes against the Lojong practice. The next question is a long one, so Buddha help me. There's too many questions actually. Buddha should help me. What is Geshe-la's advice regarding how to practice with the commitments and precepts? Are to meditate on some of them daily? What would such a meditation be like? What should we do if we find that we have violated some commitments? Does breaking the commitments mean that we have lost our status of mind training practitioners? But how is such a status acquired in the first place? Okay, maybe I should go one by one, right? Because there are too many questions packed here, right? So that you get answer to each of them. Again, that Tiwa Mangbo Deyo Tiwa Nga to Sinyam to Tangsharwage, Tiwa really sugar wage, the Majena Tiwa Laksa Redwa. Tangbo did this again. What is Geshe-la's advice regarding how to practice with commitment? Tamzi da labza ani kalso da nyamne chela gengi kalok kadna yes kan wa ta tamzi soyen da labza nya is so ge tiwa tangbo di.
Ali. Ta chenda ge ta dir nyamne che chenda ka ngal mise che de bi chenda tenshi de ya pa yu se ya jero wa. Khadi ne se mayin she ji shi de chen be ko jo su su kar chi ha ma ko tire pa ya ma so shi ani
No, so. So number one is that Geshe says, of course, what I want to say right now is that in our everyday life, if we cultivate awareness or mindfulness and of what we are thinking, what we are doing or about to do, right? So that kind of mindfulness, conscientiousness or awareness would be very helpful to keep the commitments and follow the advice. Second question, can Tiwaniba de Dirisha, Tangazo Tanda Tamzi, Labja Laura again. Tamzi, the Labja Sunga, the Yamlin Com Jabdi Galak, Nima Rail Casa Damkar, Tirin, Tamzi, the Labja de Com Jab, Sani, de Com Jab, Sedination, Digore, that's how some Restang was
Sharkum sitting on the bonds, my Satan of the Sharkum Zero. That you want on that Sadum was in the Terry de Padigo, saying the Degum say out this is that you want on the Gum down to Zero. She thought the Sharkum sees the bonds, my nature day inside, some of them with the dress. That there was Goshe Janet, but that is that there are dark way, Dahinyam said, Tanyum do the Gumins, not Tanyum Koran, some of the two. Ganga Tanyum, the Shatan Shur do those Gumna, you want on the Gumna.
So the second part of the question is to meditate on some of them daily, and what would such meditation be like? So when it comes to meditation, Geshe says there's all kinds of meditation. One is we call Shargom, which is like what we call literally translating run-through meditation. Right, you can do the A through Z run-through meditation on all the points, right? Quick kind of review sort of meditation. Or sometimes you can do like selective meditation. You can do the run-through meditation A to Z, and then you say, today I'm going to focus more on A and B and C, right? Then D, E, F next time, right? You can do. So there's all kind of meditation you can do depending upon how you would like to pursue it. The next question is, Geshe can Tamzi Nyama in and Karcha Yoresake. Tamzi Nyam Sona Karcha Yoresake.
Yamashana, Jebashan, and you get in that Tanji, the Vashaya Khan, or the Shadums in the Divorce.
What should we do if we find that we have violated some commitments? He said there are many methods of purification practice or restoration, such as you can recite. You can do Vajrasattva meditation, recitation, 100-syllable mantras, or any other purification practice to purify the transgression commitments and restore it. So that would be fine. The issue with Tuwache Orawake. Kisi Ngandu Tamzi gave a yimba that lobjo Nyamlemba Maimba Chabaravesage. Tamzi gave Lojo Nyamlengi, that's a Konera Chirawaki, and Lojo Nyamleba, Kone Wala to go to Vesada.
Did the shadow?
If you does breaking the commitments mean that we have lost our status of mind training practitioner? Geshe is checking over this. No, we don't lose the status of mind training practitioners. We just have to do the purification practice and restoration practice there. The next question is, any kisi the ale wanted that the chabina any yang the kaso kone the mason chu lojong nyamlemba kande chagre se yang joro again. Koran sama tamji gas no lojong nyamlemba mai ba cha du sam da again. Mai ba cha na ta yang yin ba so go wa kande so go is go se
ale de mai cha do ma lai
ma do no. So that related question, how is such a status acquired in the first place? So Geshe says, I said, by breaking the commitments, you don't lose your status of mind training practitioner. So that second question is irrelevant, right? I said you don't. So let me see if there's any other question I have here. I don't. So thank you all for your questions. There's one more there. Where is it? Does it pop up on the beginning or at the end? Oh, at the end. Okay. Then I'll scroll down. Which one? Oh, yeah. Biomorph, right? Yeah. What if one is not wrong about the other one who is competing and coming to the point of stealing this and that, even on one's practice? How to deal with this? Kandi shue di dirisha kenta tagi di ngando di yorwa mi shen shi so so ya denje chi gu de samba chi yorwa gen di the de yue in sara wa di Geshe so some there but they so mano ba chara ngone thane mi de so ya dindu chi gi ba chara wa gen dindu che ma so ki nyamne che de pha kuma ku tab chen ro gen dinde che bana samla khande tang bo le sa ro gen ra li nyamne che dindu che ma so nyamne de pha da chi ge kwa ra dinde samla ngu da nyamne khande kuma ya wo da nyamne pha ku bi na
ale da ngone ko dindu chi gi na ko dindu chi gi
ko che so nyamne de pha tho ra chi gi do na an khar cha wo le sa
chi na da dindu chi gi ngone she na en ko li ya dindu che da ko ra kha mi ni mo ang in ji de so de pa she ya mo de ji ya ko da dindu chi gi do di khap de cha de sam tong yo mo si
so what if one is wrong about the other one who is competing and coming to the point of stealing this and that, or even one's practice? How to deal with it? Geshe said, let's assume that the other person is really actually competing with you. It's not like you are thinking that person is, should I say. Even then, as a practitioner, we just have to reflect on how, well, kind of extend compassion to this person, that under the influence of some afflictive emotion, right, the person is even like trying to compete with you, maybe steal your practice or whatever the case may be, but you don't want to do the same thing back to them. You don't want to compete against them, and you don't want to wish them bad things happening, because nobody can actually steal your practice, So if somebody is actually competing with you, this is also an opportunity for us to extend compassion to this other person.